I started collecting baseball cards when I was about 8 years old. I would spend hours looking at the cards and sorting them. I'd sort them numerically, and then I'd pull out the stars and put them into 9-slot binder pages. Then I'd get bored with that and sort them again based on teams. I'd read the backs and learn important facts like Willie Randolph. He played stickball in the streets as a kid. Hey, I played stickball in the streets too. And did you know that Orioles pitcher Scott McGregor was a school teacher in the off-season? Wow, imagine having a pro baseball player as your teacher. How cool would that be? I logged so many hours with my card collection that many of those images are forever seared in my memory. The 1978 Reggie Jackson, what a swing. The 1977 Mark Fidrich, the guy who's really responsible for me starting this channel. The 76 Johnny Bench. I know Chris from Missouri loves this card too. And you know I love the 71 Munson. Topps absolutely nailed it. All these are iconic cards in their own right, but one card really stands on its own. It's the quintessential image representing the 1970s. The 1976 Topps traded Oscar Gamble. I knew next to nothing about Mr. Gamble back then. I didn't know that he grew up poor and that his dad died when he was only 6 years old. I didn't know that his mom worked multiple jobs until she was struck by lightning. And I certainly couldn't appreciate the flack that he received from simply growing his hair. All I knew was that he looked cool. I recently saw this card again and was instantly transported back in time. I wanted to know, who was Oscar Gamble? What's his story? Well, come along with me and find out. Oscar Gamble grew up in Montgomery County, Alabama. His childhood heroes were fellow Alabamans, Hank Aaron and Willie Mays. He was a star basketball player at George Washington Carver High School. The school didn't have a baseball team at all, so Oscar played in local sandlot games, and he had enough raw talent to catch the eye of Hall of Famer Buck O'Neil. At that time, Buck was a scout for the Cubs, combing the South for prospects. As recounted by Buck in his autobiography, I Was Right on Time, quote, "Here is what a scout lives for. I'm driving in my Plymouth Fury down a dirt road outside of Montgomery, Alabama. The road is so narrow I'm thinking I must have taken a wrong fork a few miles back. Then suddenly I hear the crack of a bat and the noise of the crowd. There's a diamond cut out of the woods. All around the field on this beautiful Saturday afternoon are people in lawn chairs, dipping into picnic baskets." Based solely on Buck's information, the Cubs drafted Oscar in the 16th round in 1968. Though Oscar was just 18, Buck knew what he saw. When Oscar reported to spring training in 1969, he weighed 150 pounds. But despite the thin frame, he made an impression on Cubs skipper Leo DeRocher, who, shockingly, compared him to Willie Mays. The more I learn about Leo, the more I'm starting to see a pattern. Despite Leo's praise, Oscar was traded to Philadelphia that winter. When asked why, Gamble said, "I wish I knew." It was later asserted by Phil Hirsch in the Chicago Sun-Times that the Cubs ownership traded him because he dated white women. I add that as a note with the caveat that I didn't read that anywhere else. The Hirsch column is cited as a reference in his Sabre bio, for whatever that's worth. But going to Philly for 1970 really opened up a possibility for Gamble. It was this 1970 season where Philly had traded for Curt Flood. And Flood, you may know, refused to report, beginning his legal battle over the reserve clause. I covered this in detail with a few friends of mine. If you aren't familiar with Flood's story and haven't seen my Curt Flood video, I beg you to watch it. I guarantee you'll learn something. Anyhow, with Flood refusing to report, it left a vacancy in center field. The Philly newspaper speculated the job was a competition between Oscar Gamble and Byron Brown, a 27-year-old light-hitting platooning outfielder. On the very last day of spring training, Oscar was cut from the opening day roster and told to report to Eugene, Oregon in the PCL. Oscar was dejected and went home to Alabama instead. But after a few days of soul-searching, he got his head straight, and he did report to Oregon. It was a good choice. He hit .296 with a .754 OPS in AAA and got called up in mid-May. He proved to still be pretty raw. especially on defense. Over the next couple of years, this pattern of Eugene to Philly would repeat. Then the Phillies traded him to the Indians after the 72 season, and he would never play another minor league game. When Oscar reported to Indians spring training in 1973, he was sporting a huge, glorious afro. The baseball establishment, it could be frustratingly slow to accept and adapt to changes in culture. Afros in the 1960s and 70s were a big part of African American self-expression. And remember, in the 1960s and early 70s, we had race riots, Vietnam War protests, students shot by the National Guard at Kent State, MLK, JFK, and RFK all gunned down, Woodstock. But if you looked at the men playing the game, it still looked like it was 1950. Was Red Schoendienst a Hall of Famer? Or was he Al from accounting? So what? Oscar grew his hair out. That's it. He was simply expressing his individuality and hoping to catch the attention of his manager and not get lost on the bench. But boy, did he get some heat for it. Fans yelled at him. Even his own fan base shouted at him to cut his hair. His manager pulled him aside for a one-on-one talking to. Sports writers didn't help. They so easily shaped public perception, and they painted him as a radical. Not because of any in-depth conversation with the man, just based solely on his afro. If they had bothered to talk to any of his teammates, these same writers would have learned he was one of the most easygoing and well-liked men on the team. In fact, Goose Gossage cited Oscar as the best teammate he ever had. Even Billy Martin loved Gamble for the way that he was able to keep a team loose. Many teammates called Oscar a great clubhouse guy. And if you know baseball speak, that's one of the biggest compliments someone can give. In the end, Gamble made a concession to the Indians and agreed to trim his afro. He joked that he lost 2 pounds in the process. But as the season progressed, he quietly let it grow. And boy, did it blossom. According to one source, the afro peaked at 8 inches, making Oscar 5'11", 6'7" with the afro. It's all ball bearings nowadays.
Now from Sharp, maker of the world's most complete line of electronic calculators, the LC8, world's smallest electronic calculator by Sharp, price tag to match. Works anywhere on battery or plug-in. LC8, world's smallest electronic calculator by Sharp, price tag to match. $345, complete. See it.
Let's dive a little deeper into Oscar's baseball cards for a minute. His 1973 baseball card is a great example of really the crap that Topps thought was acceptable at the time. This is what you get when there's no competition. I measured this in Photoshop, and Oscar takes up roughly 3% of the card surface. Just ridiculous. In any case, we can see his afro here if we zoom way in. There are better images of him in his Indians uniform, but harder to date. By the time he was traded, we have some magnificent images like this 1976 SSPC, this photograph, and of course, this airbrushed image used in 1976 Topps. We know the card was airbrushed with the Yankees cap and pinstripe uniform. When he was traded to the Yankees in November of '75, Steinbrenner made him cut his hair as a Yankees policy. Oscar resisted. He had signed a $5,000 contract with Afro Sheen. Steinbrenner solved the problem by paying Oscar the $5K. Back to that 76 Topps traded card for a minute. There were 44 cards printed that year with this torn from the headlines graphic. These were guys that were traded before opening day, but after Topps had already started their print run. Topps would later issue completely separate traded sets starting in 1981. These became popular simply because you could get a rookie card featuring Fernando in '81 or Ripken in '82, where they didn't have the three-man police lineup style that I personally always despised.
Beautiful people know true beauty is natural.
Beautiful people know true beauty is natural.
Wear their naturals proudly.
Wear their naturals proudly.
As a symbol of pride and blackness.
as a symbol of pride and blackness,
as a symbol of responsibility to black people,
as a symbol of responsibility to black people,
a responsibility to promote love and unity among black brothers and sisters,
a responsibility to promote love and unity among black brothers and sisters,
and help establish a new order of freedom and dignity for our people.
and help establish a new order of freedom and dignity for our people.
And that's the natural truth. The proceeding was brought to you by the makers of Afro Sheen, who want to help keep your hair together in more ways than one. And that's the natural truth.
The Yankees used Oscar primarily as a platooning outfielder, and when they signed Reggie Jackson for $77, they traded Oscar to the White Sox. Bill Veeck owned the White Sox from 1959 to 1961, and then came back to own them again from 75 to 81. In 77, he rebuilt the team with a rent-a-player scheme, basically trading for stars in their option years. He got bargain prices and decent trades because the players would be free agents. One of the players he picked up was Oscar, who came into the trade that sent shortstop Bucky Dent to the Yankees. Veeck did not have Steinbrenner-style hair rules, so Gamble grew his afro back, which matched up nicely with the disco-era uniforms introduced by Veeck. Veeck's scheme worked well as the team broke the White Sox record for homers and became known as the South Side Hitmen. Gamble hit .297 with 31 homers to help lead the team to a surprising 90 wins. But the Royals won 102 games to take the division before bowing out to the Yankees in the ALCS. The White Sox drew a record 1.6 million fans, and Veeck was named MLB Executive of the Year. He had World Series tickets printed and sent them to season ticket holders as keepsakes. Oscar entered free agency in November of '78 and was a man way ahead of his time. When he signed with the Padres, his contract included deferments for the next 20 years. Oscar Gamble, San Diego, 6 years, $2.85 million, $150,000 bonus, $200,000 a year salary, $100K a year deferred compensation for 15 years. So even though he retired in '85, Oscar was pulling in $100,000 every year through 1998. That's not quite Bobby Bonilla Day, which, by the way, still has 10 more years of payouts, but it's pretty smart. And combined with his MLB pension, Oscar's contract would be praised by any financial planner. He only spent 1 year in San Diego before being traded to the Rangers and then back to the Yankees for '79. It was in his Yankees return when he was quoted with this famous phrase when asked about the craziness of the Yankees clubhouse. "They don't think it be like it is, but it do." Now, let's consider this for a moment because people laugh at this, and I don't think it's quite fair to Oscar. Whether his grammar was correct or not, his quote was a response, meaning that people don't think what's going on in the Yankees clubhouse is pure insanity, but it really is. In any case, the quote is now famous, and I've seen it used to refer to any situation where expectation differs from reality. Lord knows I've been in environments where Oscar's quote would definitely apply.
What's happening?
A natural explosion from Afro Sheen.
A natural what?
The new Afro Sheen blowout kit.
Yeah, it gets rid of tangles and leaves your fro fuller and fluffier.
But how about styling?
Afro Sheen's new blowout kit makes your fro easier to style, conditions it too, and you get everything you need along with easy-to-follow instructions.
So if the fluffy blowout's your thing, do it with our thing.
The new Afro Sheen blowout kit.
It could rock your world.
Heading into his final playoffs in 1981, Oscar was 2 for his last 37. That's 0-54 for the last month of the season. I was rewatching the 1981 ALDS, and Howard Cosell wondered why Oscar was even in the lineup.
Tough to give Randolph the edge, but on experience and ability to get on base, I did, if you'll remember. I'm surprised to see Gamble in the lineup, Keith.
He's a gamer.
Well, he's 0 for 27. He's in a terrible slump.
Loop to left, base hit. So the man's in the lineup, and he delivers one to left.
But Oscar responded with the best postseason of his career with an OPS of 1232. He hit .556 with a ridiculous 1933 OPS in the ALDS against the Brewers. In decisive Game 5, he went back-to-back with Reggie, both lefties but two very different swings. Oscar had a real unique stance, bent over and crouched low. I have no idea how he hit with power from that stance.
Now, that's one thing about left-hand hitters. In Yankee Stadium, you've got to be so careful with it. That's a short porch in right. He loses him, it may be over. Ball is hit deep to right. It's gone. Forget it. Yankees take the lead.
Oscar had an entrepreneurial spirit. While playing for the Yankees, he had opened a disco in Alabama called Oscar Gamble's Players Club. In retirement, Oscar opened a sporting goods store in Montgomery, Alabama in 1986. Then he joined the Senior Professional Baseball Association in '89. I need to do a video on this league. It was an attempt to have a senior league. Think of something like the Senior PGA, maybe. Some big names were involved, but it just couldn't sustain itself financially and only lasted 2 seasons. Oscar Gamble died of, excuse me if I say this wrong, ameloblastic carcinoma, a rare tumor of the jaw, on January 31, 2018 in Birmingham, Alabama. He was 68 years old. When I heard jaw cancer, I immediately thought of chewing tobacco, but I want to point out that his wife said he never chewed. And this is a really rare cancer, affecting less than 1 in 5 million people. As a point of reference, according to the National Cancer Institute, 1 in 19 people will develop lung cancer. In 2016, before he passed, Oscar was inducted into the Alabama Sports Hall of Fame, joining some of his childhood heroes, including Hank Aaron, Willie Mays, Monty Irvin, and Satchel Paige. Before I go, here's an interesting fact for you. Oscar was called up for his MLB debut in August of '69. He played in a few games, and then on September 2, he had 1 plate appearance and he walked. But here's why it's interesting. The game on September 2 was the resumption of the back end of a doubleheader from June 15. That game was suspended in the 8th inning and finished at Crosley Field on September 2nd. Therefore, Oscar's official MLB debut goes down as June 15th as a base on balls. The 4 games he previously played in August officially coming after. Thanks for your time and take care. Oh, she's down. Pin her. Go for the pin. Oh.
Oh.
Uh-oh. Reverse.
Oh. Chuck dug some punches.
Did you have this in here for me?
Whoa.
You know it.
She's going for the single leg.
Okay.
He's just trying to
Go off the top rope.
he's trying to just brute force it.
I feel like she might. Chuck's battery is pretty.